And we have a phenomenal panel coming up on Bay Area sports. So I want to introduce our panelists as well as the host in a couple of minutes. Once they get settled in, we'll get to our panel on Bay Area sports. This is your 2-minute warning.
Once again, we are ready to start our next panel. For those continuing conversations during our networking break, please move your conversation to the terrace so we can hear our wonderful panel of speakers coming up next.
This is the issue when you have a lavalier mic and not one of these. I'm just going to use one of these. Simple, reliable. All right, I gave you guys your 2-minute warning, and we are about to get the show started and underway again. As a reminder, if you have networking conversations, please move that to the terrace past the coffee bar. Otherwise, everyone in this room is going to be locked in on Bay Area game changers. And the man of the hour, Rick Tillis, CEO of Inner Circle Sports, is going to come up and tell us what's in store. Rick.
Hello. I'd like to introduce Jed York and Guido. Coming on up. Good morning, everybody. So we're going to have an engaging conversation about the Bay Area football team. Start with Jed. In 78 years, there have been 5 owners of the San Francisco 49ers, which is a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about how your family got involved originally, and then since you took over in, I think, 2008?
How long of an answer do you want?
Sorry?
How long of an answer do you want?
We'll keep it, we have 25 minutes, so.
So my grandfather tried to buy the Steelers. He tried to buy the Browns. He tried to do a bunch of different things in sports. And the team that ended up being for sale was in San Francisco. So he was bidding against the Spanos family, who was from north of San Francisco. Two brothers, Vic and Tony Morabito, founded the team. They married two sisters. I can't remember if it was Vic or Tony, but one of them died of a heart attack during a game. Another one died of a heart attack not too long after.
Right.
So the sisters ran the team for a long time.
Sorry, I think that he had a heart attack at the Bears, watching the Bears game.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Which I'm not trying to make a joke, but I certainly I understand how that is possible. But the sisters, both Italian, both Catholic, they had a Notre Dame connection with my grandfather, and the guy that ended up brokering the deal was Al Davis. Huh. So Al got a brokerage fee from the Morabito sisters. He had $16 million on the table from my grandfather and from Mr. Spanos, A.G. Spanos, Dean's father. And he convinced my grandfather to pay an extra $1 million. In 1977, $1 million is a lot of money in 1977. Teams weren't making a lot of money. And Al Davis was the one that said, look, we're about to take over the number one spot in sports, and we're never going to look back. He's like, this $1 million will be a rounding error in the long run. He's like, you have to do it. And they did it, and it worked out.
Great. I'll come back to you on that. Al, you want to give the attendees a little bit on your career path and how you wind up with two jobs? Who has two jobs?
He's got more than that.
A lot of these people. I have a few people in the room here to thank. Jeff Brown over here, who I worked for a cup of coffee, he would say, at the Lakewood Blue Claws. But I think I generally know mostly everybody in here. But grew up in New Jersey. Go figure, when your last name's Guido, you're from New Jersey. I worked for the Flyers and Sixers and minor league baseball and Dallas Cowboys and Legends. And I've been lucky enough to be, for the last 15 years, out in the Bay Area with this guy.
Got it. And Jed,
he loves the part of the story where his wife and my wife are very, very good friends. And we were looking for somebody. And I was like, well, I can either do a search or I can have a happy wife and a little bit happier life.
Uh-huh. So that worked out well. So then when you took over, Jed, in 2008, is it true you were an investment banker for a year?
So I worked for Guggenheim 03, 04, 05. I worked in different departments, but I worked for Todd Bowley's group at the end. So I was around Todd a bunch and his team.
What was that like?
It was, I have the utmost respect for Todd. Like, watching him run a Monday morning credit meeting was something. And the level of detail that he had on every deal that we did, and like the fear that you saw in like the analysts that weren't prepared, it was real. But he trained an unbelievable team, just had a very, very bright mind, and it certainly helped me get to a place where we were trying to figure out how to finance a stadium where there's not a lot of public financing available, and it was an unbelievable education.
And then how did you decide to move into the team and kind of the team operations at that time?
Well, I was really loving working like banking hours. And I'm like, should I own and run an NFL team, or should I make $45,000 a year and live in Manhattan and get my ass kicked every day? It was a really, really tough decision. Uh-huh. But when I figured it out, I think I made the right one.
Yeah, great. Can you talk, both of you, a little bit about the team side this year? Obviously, it's been a good trip to New York. I don't know if there are a lot of Giant fans in here, but there might be. You've dealt with a lot of injuries this year, and any thoughts, Jed, on the 2025 campaign?
I mean, I look at John and Kyle and what we've been able to build, you know, on paper, when you're without your starting quarterback, when you're without two defensive starters and all-pro, probably Hall of Fame caliber players. We're 6-3. I think we can easily be better than 6-3. I have no idea what the limit is on this team, but watching the fight that these guys have and watching how we've come together, it's really been one of the most fun seasons for me, just to see guys step up and do what they need to do. And I think Kyle, I've said it before, I think Kyle's by far the best coach in sports. And watching what he's been able to do with this team and watching how the team has come together, it's been a fun run.
I'm not sure this group knows where Brock Purdy came from. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and kind of his evolution?
So you might recall we traded up to get a quarterback the year before, invested 3 first-round picks. And the choices were sort of Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And that was an interesting debate. We ended up taking Trey. He was there, came in. We had Jimmy back, and we knew that we weren't going to have a backup quarterback. Didn't have a ton of cap room, didn't have a lot of things moving forward. And we loved Brock, right? Like, he was a third-round guy on our board, but he's probably 6'1". If Brock was 6'3", 6'4", he's a end of the first, second-round player, 4-year starter at Iowa State. They just loved the young man, loved his work ethic, and we was still sitting there in the 7th. It was, well, do you want this long arm offensive lineman that, you know, has potential and upside, or do you guys want the only guy that's sitting at the absolute top of the board? And it was a no-brainer pick. And I mean, I remember sitting there, and again, mind you, 3 first-round picks invested into Trey. I think we were paying Jimmy like $20 million for a 2-year stint. And second week of training camp, Kyle's like, well, you know, our best quarterback is our 7th-round draft pick. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's cool. But I have so much trust and respect for Kyle. He played it the right way, right? Like, he didn't move him to the head of the line, right? Trey unfortunately got hurt. Jimmy unfortunately got hurt. And then Brock was able to step up and play. And at the end of the day, it's not about who made a decision. We invested money in a draft pick, so we have to make sure that that decision looks right. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You're trying to compete all the time. And it really is, it's portfolio theory, right? It doesn't matter what an individual stock does. It matters what the portfolio does. And I think that's the attitude and the mentality that we take, where we may have made some mistakes. And, you know, when you draft a guy that can be a great starting quarterback in the 7th round, and then you can pick up the guy that you could have picked with the 3 first-round picks you invested, and he's your backup quarterback, and he's won 6 games for you, that works too.
I think just officially he was 262nd pick out of 262 picks in the 2022 draft.
But it shows you that the NFL, you don't know. It is not a perfect science. There's nothing perfect about the NFL and how evaluations go. It really is about people, and that's, I mean, as you know, I love watching the networking. Like, I love watching this group. Just because somebody didn't go to the fanciest school or the biggest, you know, football caliber school doesn't mean that they can't be awesome, right? I mean, you talk about Al. Is there a better executive in sports than Al? No, right? If you look at Al's resume compared to other people, oh, you know, Trent College, like, he didn't go to Harvard, he didn't go here. He works his ass off. And he has so much grit in him, right, that a lot of people overlook. And I think that's the biggest mistake that we make in sports is, you know, you have to be this perfect setup to go be special. And that's not it. Like, I will take work ethic, determination, and drive over anything to predict success. And he's the epitome of that.
Should we just run this panel and talk about Al in the third person?
I appreciate this. Thank you.
We can.
Al, Levi is known as one of the most technologically advanced stadiums in the league. Can you talk a little bit about how it got built and what some of the advantages are in the concert business, et cetera? And you also, I think, have a Super Bowl coming up and a few World Cup games.
Yeah, busy year. It's pretty cool to know that the Levi's will be the only stadium to ever host a Super Bowl and World Cup games in the same calendar year, ever. I'm sitting here. No?
There we go.
There we go. Sitting here looking with our members of the Bay Area Host Committee here today. They're going to go ring the bell later about all the events that are happening at Levi's, Rob. But it really started with Jed's vision. I mean, there was not a stadium built in California in 50 years, and we were playing in the oldest non-renovated stadium in all of the National Football League at Candlestick Park. you fast forward, and 12 years in, we've hosted, I think, more events than any outdoor stadium in the country, and that's not counting all the small and private events. You mentioned technology. I think it's just, we sort of had to be, right? We live in the Bay Area. But a lot of things were coming along at that time in the guest experience that were dramatically changing. And you could say that we took this gamble, but I don't know that it was all that much of a gamble. And I think when you're around the San Francisco 49ers and you're around the region, you have a lot of people that are pushing you to make change. And if you think about it on the football side, which you talked about, a lot of the conversation in football gets talked about what Bill Walsh meant to the NFL on the field. Now you think about what we can do off the field with all the advancements. Jed and I just spent a week in the Bay Area meeting with all the AI companies, and what that might mean to the future of our sports and our stadiums. And I don't even think we're at the cusp. We're at the cusp of what that means for us. But it's been a fun run over the last 12 years.
You're going to have a data center inside Levi's? Yeah.
We may.
Can you guys talk about what you're planning around for real estate, any development around Levi's?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of people in this room that have done mixed-use developments in and around their stadiums, and there's no question. I'm not going to break news today per se, but with Jed's leadership, we're thinking about what's next, right? We just put in $250 million into Levi's, only 12 years into the building, so it really does look like a new campus. And so then the question becomes, okay, if that's Levi's 2.0, what does Levi's 3.0 look like? And there's no doubt that between our investments in the region, whether it's tech or venture, that real estate is on our mind, and I appreciate the help of a lot of people in this room that are helping us with that. And then the other thought, Rob, is we're really investing outside of the Bay Area. If you look at what we've done with the National Football League and the Global Markets Program, we've been heavily involved in Mexico. Elevate represents Estadio Azteca or Estadio Banorte now. What we're doing now in the UAE and what we're doing in London, and I know obviously we'll talk about Leeds and Rangers, but for us it's not just a Bay Area strategy. It's really about becoming the Globes team, the San Francisco 49ers, and that's what we're focused on.
So speaking of European football, can you guys talk about the decision-making process that went into investing in Leeds and Rangers and kind of the global growth of that sport?
I mean, we're always looking for opportunities. When you look at Leeds United, Leeds was one of the top teams in all of global football in the 70s and 80s. They fell on hard times. They were out of the first division for close to 20 years. And you still have one of the strongest fan bases, not just in the UK, but in the world. So to be able to buy that asset when they were in the second division in English football, have the ability to be able to get them up in a relatively short period of time, I think the sky's the limit for what Leeds can be because they have such an amazing brand. And when you look at Rangers, right, you've got two major teams in Scotland, and Rangers has been a phenomenal experience, right? And they haven't achieved what they want to achieve on the pitch in the last 10 to 15 years, right? Celtic has kind of dominated that league. We think that we can get on par and get in front of Celtic. And that's really what the goal is. But you have two unbelievable brands that just make sense. And it's not all that dissimilar from when we took over with the 49ers, right? You had the team in the 80s and sort of early to mid-90s. We fell on hard times for a period of time. But that brand is one of the strongest brands in sports. And being able to take those brands and put them back where they belong, I mean, I don't believe that owners really own their team. Like you're a steward of a public trust. Mm-hmm. And Leeds and Rangers are very, very much like the San Francisco 49ers in that you have phenomenal fan bases that deserve and desire to be the best in the world. And that's what we're trying to provide.
And do they leverage like the best practices from you guys?
No question. Yeah, we if you think about partnerships or sponsorships or ticketing and best practices, I do think that call it the Premier League has done something that the NFL is, I think, striving to do now. Like we always talk about whether we're going to Americanize the sport over there, but if you look at what Premier League teams have done as it relates to their sponsorship business and how they'll have partners in America, they'll have partners in the UK, they'll have partners in Asia, and the NFL didn't do that, right? The NFL as a league did that, but the NFL for teams weren't allowed to do that. I mean, we only owned our IP 75-mile radius around our stadium. And so we're really now just getting started as a league, and more specifically as teams, as thinking about ourselves as global brands, right? If you rewind the tape 5 years ago, and we have a tremendous banking partner in U.S. Bank in the Bay, we would have sold exclusivity to that banking partner for the world. Right now we have Banorte, right? We have U.S. Bank, and we have others that are actually looking to do deals with us. And I think that as much as they have to learn from us, Rob, we have a lot to learn from how they operate their businesses too.
But even fan experience, right? When you go to either Rangers, it's 55,000 seats, Leeds 38,000 seats. You have supporters that are maybe 1,000 people, and they carry the energy for a game. We don't have that the same way in the National Football League. And trying to figure out, I know a lot of the LAFC guys, they've done a phenomenal job of building out something in a very, very short period of time where you carry the energy with a small amount of people that are in the building, but you can see it and you can feel it. And I think the 49ers fans, especially if you were at MetLife this weekend, right, like they took over MetLife. Like you've read some of the articles and some of the things that the Giants players have said. You want that type of experience. Like you want to be able to go to a game and feel what's going on. And I don't think there's any experience like going to a Rangers or Leeds home match. Like those guys just absolutely rock and roll.
Jed, on the NFL specifically, can you talk about two things? One is 32 equity, which I think a lot of people in this room know about, but I don't think they really know what 32 equity is actually doing. And also the NFL deal with ESPN, which I think is a landmark watershed moment.
So 32 equity, I think there's a huge opportunity for the league, right? Fanatics is probably our most successful partnership and investment. We own a piece of Fanatics. We helped that business build and grow. And even if we didn't, Michael Rubin would have found a way to build and grow it on his own. But that's where the NFL, when you look at the future of growth in sports, I don't think it's going to come from the traditional partnership route that we've taken over the last 15, 20 years. It's going to still be a big piece of it, but there's going to be an opportunity to continue to invest in companies and build and grow along with the brand. And 32 Equity, I think, does that at the league level. We do that through Orem Partners and our venture capital arm with the 49ers, run by great friend and partner Brano Perkovic. But you want to make sure that you're thinking about who are going to be the next global partners, of whether it's team, whether it's the league, and how do you invest in them and get them off the ground? How do you get them running? How do you get them going? And 32 Equity has a huge, huge opportunity. There's no brand like the National Football League. And to be able to pool the 32 clubs and the league office and be able to find awesome investment opportunities and awesome growth vehicles, we can just do that, I think, better than anybody else in the world. When you talk about ESPN, I think that's something that the landscape has obviously changed outside of sports. It has not completely changed inside of sports when you're looking at media. And everybody's trying to figure out how to do the best that they can to continue to bring the most watched product in entertainment in the United States to fans. And that's what I think this partnership is going to do. You're going to have a deeper connection between the NFL, ESPN, and really getting closer to our fans and being able to do more with our fans. And I think you're going to see more and more of that over time, because that's where the growth opportunity is, and that's where just the opportunity in entertainment is going to be.
Yeah, I think the game changer was having games on Christmas Day on Netflix, or some of the other things that the NFL is thinking about doing. Any other thoughts about the media rights renewal that's coming up?
I mean, again, this is kudos to Commissioner Goodell and the team at the NFL. You know, they have opt-outs in their deals for a reason. And we have unbelievable partners, but we also have unbelievable opportunities. I'm not going to speak for them and sort of what they're thinking and where they're going with it. But there's going to be a lot of competition. And we want to make sure that we continue to do what is best for our league and ultimately what is best for our fans. And how do we continue to grow the fan base, grow the viewership, both domestically, which clearly we're the number one entertainment property domestically. How do we continue to build and grow that internationally? And there's going to be a ton of opportunities there.
Just on valuation for a second, I'm going to use a dirty word. In 2008, the Forbes value, Sash Sportico wasn't doing valuations back then. When you took over, it was $865 million, and it's now $8.6 billion in 17 years. That's 10x, or a 14.5% compounded annual growth rate versus the S&P, which was 12.7. So if anyone wondering whether it's good to invest in the NFL, the answer was and clearly still is yes. In that regard, you guys have brought on some new partners into the team. Can you go into a little bit your thought process for why you brought in new partners, why now, and any commentary around that?
I mean, my family still owns well over 80% of the team, and at some point, whether your numbers are completely accurate or not, you can see the trajectory of NFL teams, right? There's some just amount of diversification that you're going to have when you're in this business. And what we're trying to do and what we're trying to grow, some of your first questions of real estate, other opportunities, right? We wanted to make sure that we brought in capital that we can go do things, team balance sheet. And when you have a family business, right, most of the teams that are owned by people and have been for a while are family run and family owned. I don't ever want to see my family in the news because I'm fighting with my sisters, right? Like I don't want to have that ever come up. Like I love my family more than anything, and I want to make sure that they have their own personal balance sheets. They can go do things because you can see it if those numbers are at least directionally accurate. Mm-hmm. When you look on paper of what you're worth versus what's in your bank account, like it's very different, mm-hmm. right? So you want to make sure that people can go do what they want to do because there's only one person that's running and managing a team. So that my family was first and foremost. You want to make sure that you bring in partners that you know and trust, and the people that we brought in are some of the best people in the world and by far the best investors in the world, right? You know one of them very well. You were young analysts at Goldman together, right? I don't think that there's anybody smarter than Pete, yeah. right? You have just great people that are there. And if we're thinking about how to do more with the NFL and more with sports properties and more with some of the biggest brands in the world, I want the smartest minds with me. And I also want people that I actually like sitting next to at a game. That is a very, very small Venn diagram. And we were luckily able to find 4 amazing partners to come in and check all of those boxes. And that's not easy to do.
Yeah, great. Al, can you talk a little bit about Elevate, the origin and kind of how the business has evolved and what gets you excited about the road ahead?
Sure. In the minute and 58 seconds I have left.
I think we have plus 5.
It's okay. Look, I thank this guy a lot for allowing me to go, build a company, and he was the first investor. And then there's other in this room. You don't do it, as Jed just referenced on the partner of the team side. I don't do it without the equity partners at Elevate. I saw Hannah Harris in here earlier. So to bring Josh on and David and what they're building, what they've been building at HBSC, what they're going to continue to build, to have Arctos as a partner, Velocity and Levi with Andy Lansing is just phenomenal. It doesn't happen without people. It's been fun over the last 7 years. We operate in 13 different countries. We have over 200 clients across the globe. I think what I'm most excited about, Rob, is, frankly, and you spend a lot of time on this, is the boom in infrastructure projects. We can talk a lot about the cost, the rising cost, inflation, yada, yada, yada. The reality is there is, of known, call it $90 billion of infrastructure projects planned. In the NFL alone, $20 billion, and call it the next 5 years in stadiums. And so if you think about what's happening in the college landscape, what's happening in North America, what's happening around the globe, I don't know. And it was interesting spending all this time with all these AI companies is the reality is sports and the experience economy is, as we all know, or we wouldn't be in here to stay, and here to stay in a big way. It's the thing that you cannot script. You can't type it into a chat GPT and get an answer. And so for me, as Elevate, as a person who's representing a lot of these properties and the media, right, because literally the only thing, at least my kids, 16, 14, 12, watch live is sports and news. That's it. And so I think Elevate sits at a good intersection between the sports brands and fans right now.
But the experience may change going forward, how we experience the games and the events.
Sure. And I listen, I think Jed nailed it on the Leeds and Rangers conversation, or in the San Francisco 49ers too. And John Henry and Sam Kennedy said something that sticks with me. I think Theo was in the room when it was said, which is like, we look for outsized fandom. And I think that was really well said. I mean, if it's appointment television or it's appointment go-to. I think about the San Francisco 49ers. We spend a lot of time at teams, and we're lucky in the NFL. We certainly are, talking about the 700,000 fans that we interact with on 10 Sundays. The reality is we have 20 million fans globally. And so the equation, we're lucky enough to be able to have 90% of our buildings sold. And yes, we want to make sure that we have a great experience for those 700,000 fans. But we also got to think about the long tail and the 20 million of fans that we're able to monetize, frankly, all around this country. It was good to see a lot of them show up on Sunday at MetLife. But for me, Rob, that's really what our team is spending our time on.
Great. I'd like to thank Jed and Al, and thank everyone for listening in.
Thanks, guys.